Of all the people I know, I was the first to stream a movie on Netflix. It was spring of 2007. At the time, my folks were subscribed to the 2 discs at a time version of Netflix, which, for those of you born after the turn of the millennium, used to be a mail order DVD rental service. Much like any other middle class child raised in the 90s, my family had a small library of home media we owned, collected through the years, mostly on VHS, though to my recollection we had amassed a few dozen DVDs by that point, the newest of which was probably Master and Commander or Secondhand Lions. But while I had certainly watched the movies in that library absolutely to death, or perhaps because of that, most of the movies I watched in the late noughts were rentals in one form or another. By 2007, Netflix had already dramatically altered the home movie rental scene. Being able to establish a queue of DVDs that would just automatically show up as soon as you returned the last one was such an amazing development in entertainment. In the early spring of that year, my family was availing ourselves of the wide selection of TV shows available, working our way methodically through some of my mom's favorites, the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes and David Chusset Poirot shows, originally broadcast on Masterpiece in the US. One Saturday afternoon it must have been March or April, however, found me without any discs in hand. They must have been in the mail, headed one direction or another. No desire to rewatch a movie from our little family library, and a couple of hours to kill before meeting up with friends. I hopped onto the family computer and pulled up Netflix, intending to look through the queue and possibly add a disc or two to it, but instead I noticed a little banner ad that said something about watching a movie right then and there, included free with our subscription. I didn't know what that was all about, but I was a bored, curious teenager, so I clicked on it. It's a miracle I never downloaded any viruses as a teen. That banner took me to a part of the Netflix site I'd never seen before. Stream movies, it said. Like, the whole thing. Just right there in the browser. I was familiar with the concept of streaming video on the internet. I'd watched the odd Evanescence music video on, I believe it was Vimeo at the time, and I'd spent numberless hours looking at loading screens on homestarrunner.net, but the concept of streaming a whole movie legally without paying anything more than what we were already paying for the DVD subscription we had, well, that was new. As I said, I was bored and my nearest plans were a few hours off, so I watched a movie. It was The Core, which is a bad movie, come to find out, but the experience was just so novel that it stuck with me. Fast forward a couple of years to 2010. I was moving out of the house, starting to pay my own bills, and a Netflix subscription was pretty much a given. By then, I had the option to save a pretty decent chunk of change by foregoing the DVD by mail subscription altogether and just signing up for streaming, and that was pretty well a no-brainer for an early 20s college student that toted a MacBook and an LG Optimus everywhere he went. Netflix was deep in the trenches, adding as many movies and TV shows as they could to their streaming lineup. I remember them adding MASH fairly soon after I set up my own account, which was a huge win for me. They had all the Star Trek shows by then as well, and huge studio backlogs of films I'd always wanted to watch but had never bothered to rent. It wasn't so much the promise of endless quality entertainment for an incredibly reasonable monthly price as much as it was just exactly that, in all its glory. I even installed their app on my Wii so I could stream directly to my TV. That was some grade A future living. As a teen, I had pirated the odd movie or TV show, usually because watching them required some sort of premium cable nonsense or they weren't available to rent and I didn't want to splash out to buy them. But I fully stopped doing that at all in my early 20s because Netflix streaming was genuinely just that good. It's 2026 now. I'm in the latter half of my 30s, and I'd rather pull all of my own teeth out with a pair of rusty tweezers and a spoon than deal with any form of internet streaming video. Aside from YouTube, of course. YouTube is perfect in every way. Please, Mr. Algorithm, spare my meager video. So what changed? How did streaming get to be so horribly bleak? And what, if anything, can we do about it? Netflix's pivot to original content because copyright holders pulled their own content behind their own paywalls, in the process establishing a horde of rival streaming services, would honestly have seemed to me a pretty obvious outcome of the way things were trending in 2010 if I hadn't been a fundamentally oblivious 20-something. What happened is perhaps a better question to ask concerning the intervening 15 years, and the simple answer is money. Money happened. We live in a system of late-stage capitalism where the prevailing social pressures all focus on money, and where the only motive the wealthy ever have is to accrue more wealth. Netflix's success could do nothing but inspire imitators, giant corporations that initially signed with Netflix simply because they saw a chance to get recurring payments out of consumers without having to deal with the enormous shipping logistics involved with something like mail-order DVD rentals, were always going to try and claw that pie back the moment it became clear they could do so and only deal with the logistics of server uptime. Corporate greed is eternal, and nothing is going to spark mass movement at the Fortune 500 level than one particular company doing something revolutionary and making a bunch of money off of it. That's how we wound up with cable TV being the way it is in the first place. Remember how cable used to not have ads? Because you paid a subscription for it? Remember how streaming used to also be exactly that? So what happened? Netflix was successful. They pulled it off. They made money. And the free market did what the free market does when anyone makes money: converge, backstab, and imitate. I just want to get out here with saying that you're not crazy for thinking streaming just sucks in general right now, because it does, but you're also not crazy for thinking that maybe we're all blowing this a little out of proportion here. Streaming sucks for the same reason cable sucks. If you want to watch all the quality shows and movies you keep hearing about, you have to pay for a huge pile of services to the tune of $80 or more per month, and then you may still have to watch ads for some of it. There's rumors floating around that some of these services are in talks with each other to offer up bundles that will, if nothing else, simplify your account management, and the way Disney's going, they may wind up just buying everyone else eventually anyway, but you can bet your tush that the overall price is not going to come down from here. But just as with cable 20 years ago, you absolutely can get plenty of entertainment without all that bag. Just like with broadcast TV, there are some streaming services that are entirely ad-supported you can watch without paying anything other than your time. There are also a number of streaming services that may be included with something you're already paying a subscription for, which doesn't increase your financial load. And heck, there's even still broadcast TV. Did you know that? You can still basically stick a baling between two wire coat hangers and plug it into the back of your TV with a coax cable and watch full high-def TV for free. Well, with ads, that is. So while it's certainly valid to feel like the current streaming landscape is obnoxious and that the future of streaming looks pretty bleak, as long as you're not obsessed with keeping up with the latest of every new show, it's perhaps not as bad as all that. The upshot of all this is that with a little bit of history, you can sort of track the trajectory that streaming is on. Because this isn't the first time this has happened. I already mentioned cable with its decline over the years from an all-encompassing ad-free subscription to a tier-based premium channel beset regional monopoly absolutely drowning in ads. But broadcast TV followed a similar trajectory in its early years. You started with constant entertainment supported by small in-show product placement deals and wound up with every hour of TV being a third commercial breaks and every time slot between midnight and noon being infomercials. Even radio followed that trajectory, for Pete's sake. So it seems reasonable to assume that's the path streaming is on. We started with one service that had everything you wanted, ad-free for a low monthly subscription. We're in the bit where the subscription prices rise so high it becomes completely unsustainable, and we've just about hit that mark because instead of just raising prices now to milk us all of cash, the streamers have all started introducing cheaper tiers with some ads. Next, we'll see the prices stagnate for a few years while the number of ads climbs. Then Comcast will wrap a bunch of services together, call it Xfinity Streaming, and offer you a deal if you bundle it with your internet and mobile phone plans. There's almost something comforting in knowing how this is going to play out. But as consumers, that doesn't mean we have to like it playing out this way yet again. We can just hope that, as has happened in the past, somebody is going to Netflix their way in here and do something innovative and disruptive that will give us consumers a couple of decades somewhat insulated from the corporate greed by the corpos scrambling at each other's throats instead of ours. That just leaves the question of what, as a consumer of entertainment, can you do about this right now while you wait for the industry to work its way through this cycle again? I, of course, can't answer that for you. I don't, know you. This screen isn't bidirectional. None of this is real. You need to wake up. So instead of answers, let me give you options. It is, of course, entirely possible that you have enough income to just weather this. You sign up for the streaming services you want to and watch the shows you want to watch. You look at your credit card bill every month and grumble about how many services you've got and how much they all cost, but then you pay and move on with life. Or maybe you play it a little tighter, because money doesn't grow on trees, as your dad always said, so you wait until a new season of a show you want to watch is out, then sign up for 1 month of that service, binge that season, and cancel before the end of the month. Or to avoid the hassle of the constant shifting, you sign up for the cheaper tiers with ads and just deal with the extra time investment of watching ads. You learned to tune them out a long time ago anyway, so it doesn't affect you, even if Doritos do now sound weirdly appealing. Or perhaps you don't really have the funds for even that. So you pick one streaming service, sign up for their cheapest tier, and just watch whatever they have. You do some research, figure out which one is going to give you the most stuff that you find interesting, and go with that. If you're really into reality TV, you honestly can't do much better than Netflix. Or maybe you're really nostalgic and you want to be up to date on at least some hotly discussed shows, so you go for Disney Plus. Or you're already planning to pay for streaming music or fast free shipping on e-commerce, so you land on Apple TV or Prime Video. Whatever it is, the stuff they're offering is just going to have to be enough. Or, as the case may be, you are either just unwilling or completely unable to pay for any of this nonsense. You're okay with not staying in the heat of whatever movie or TV show is in the cultural zeitgeist, or at the very least your wallet says you're okay not staying in it, and you're just going to have to play along. So you turn to Tubi or Pluto, you satisfy yourself with old shows and movies, or watch lengthy video essays on YouTube. You download apps like Peacock and PBS and satisfy yourself with the free offerings there. Or because you can, you wire a balun in between a couple of coat hangers and plug it into the back of your TV. The fact is, there's no way you've seen all the good stuff that you can find for free. It's just that if you want to talk to somebody about it, you might have to call your grandma, which is fine. She'd probably love to hear from you anyway. In the end, there's really only one piece of advice I would say is universal, regardless of which of these strategies you use. Think about investing in physical media. Like I said before, I do personally believe that there will be a way out of this mess eventually. The pattern is on its third or fourth cycle depending on how you count it, and it seems likely to repeat. But what hasn't changed for as long as physical recordings of any form of entertainment have existed is that once you have that record in your possession, the corporate greed surrounding it stops mattering. Go to some thrift stores and grab a DVD player. Dig out your old game consoles if you've got them. PS2s and Xboxes will play DVDs, PS3s and 4s and the Xbox Ones will do Blu-rays. Ignore Nintendo. They don't like you anyways. And hey, if all else fails, there's always books. If you really think about it, they're kind of like streaming services for your brain, where the casting is always exactly what you wanted, you never actually need Wi-Fi, and bonus, the subtitles are always on and 100% accurate.